Hey guys, welcome to the Big Blue United podcast. My name's TJ. I'm here with Dan and Colin. What's up, guys? Colin, good to have you back. How was the Next Scars tour out on the West Coast there?
It was great. The East Coast was great, but this was like on another level of great. I mean, because I've never played on the West Coast, so that was a really cool thing. I do have to say one thing though: if you ever have a chance to go to Sacramento, don't. What a dump! And sorry for all the Sacramento fans that listen to the podcast out there, but
There's none, I don't think.
Yeah, I know, that's the joke of it. It was like Florida and New Jersey strip malls, but just on the West Coast and in the desert.
My cousin actually lives there.
Oh,
he had nothing particularly interesting to say about it the last time I saw him.
It's rough. It's just like, I don't know.
We were at a funeral, so maybe like Sacramento's being like at a funeral all the time.
That's what it felt like. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what it felt like. I mean, the show was cool. The venue was cool. It was that picture that I sent you, Dan, of it had like graffiti on the walls and stuff like that. It was pretty. It was very CBGBs of the West Coast.
Someone say something. TJ's. Is anyone here? I can't hear anything. It's there used to have a friend named Colin with an awesome mustache, and he just didn't come back to the pod.
Yeah.
Should we get started? Yes. Do you want to start the pod, Tej? Should we get it going?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so why didn't we start there in the first place? Yes, I don't have my mustache anymore. It was just time. It was 2 years. It was a quarantine thing. The mustache had to go.
I want all of our patrons and fans to know that Colin did not consult TJ and I. He went rogue and did this. Otherwise, this would have never happened. And if you don't want to listen anymore, that's totally fine. You can.
I get it. So, Colin, can you explain this, please, in a little more depth as to what happened to your mustache?
Well,
everyone deserves to know.
I was aiming towards this trip being the finality of it anyway. And then when I came home, I was home for a couple of days. I just started thinking about it and talking to Steph. She was cool with it for a long time, and it wasn't that she was sick of it, but she's just like, you gonna take it off anytime soon? I was just like, all right, that's all I needed. I'm just gonna do it. If you've gotten over it now, I'm gonna do it. But the funny thing about it was, then as soon as I was like, all right, I'm gonna go take a shower and I'm gonna do it, and she's like, oh no, I'm scared. I don't know what you're gonna look like after.
I remember when you were gonna get married before your wedding got canceled twice because of the plague. Steph was like, you have to shave your mustache. And then we had sort of like a secret talk going on that we were all going to have a mustache as your groomsmen. I was going to shave my beard and just have a mustache.
Oh, that we're all going to
grow a mustache. Yeah. I love to like ruin someone's wedding who's been thinking about it their whole lives as a girl, and me come in like a big jerk and do some dumb shit like that. That would have made me feel good.
But funny enough, she wouldn't have hated that. She would have loved that, just as long as I didn't have it. Well, she didn't even hate it. Even with the pictures and everything like that, it's going to be one of those things we're going to laugh about down the road.
It would have been worth it to see Peach with an attempt at a mustache.
Oh,
that would be gross.
Or Eric.
Well, Eric would look like his dad.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, his dad had epic mustache. All right, we're getting too far away here. Colin, I want to ask you one more question. You have any good food while you're out on the West Coast? Or?
Well, I mean, funny enough, I thought all of Southern California was going to be based in Mexican food and specifically burritos. But one of the best ones I had the entire trip was in San Francisco. But it was burritos. I just had like 7 of them.
I hope you didn't use any hot sauce because that stuff's banned.
No, the flavoring was just so good by itself. I didn't need it. Why would I ever think of it?
Don't need it for anything.
No hot sauce. No.
As usual, guys, follow Big Blue United on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us directly at BBU Podboys with the Z on Twitter. Don't forget to download that DraftKings app. And this week, our sponsor is OVHCloud, which is a cloud provider offering virtual private servers, dedicated servers, VMware-based hosted private cloud, and OpenStack-based public cloud to over 1.4 million customers worldwide. They host video games, websites, email, and more with OVHCloud. It starts at just $3.5. How about $3.50 a month? That sounds a little bit better than that. Here's the link. I understand that you're probably not going to want to type that into your browser. We're going to have it in the description on the Twitter, and we'll also description on the YouTube. We'll also tweet it out with the episode. Right on. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I like to use a VPN a lot, so I think VPN's a great thing to have, especially like, if you're doing this and that in the internet you don't want people to know about, which we've all been there before. This is venturing into the territory that we like when we started at the beginning of this. Like, what we want people to know that we're doing on the internet.
I think this will be good. This would be a great product for the Giants now that they have an analytics department and need to store wealths of data. Something they never needed before. But if you're looking for a solution, OVHCloud, New York Giants front office analytics staff.
Speaking of which, what's the name of the guy that was the analytics guy and he got promoted to like game manager or something like that? I forgot what his title is. It's something to do. I forget his name. You saw that as well, no? It was like a strictly analytical guy that is now more of a football guy, which is interesting and something Dave Gettleman never would have done.
Yeah, I can't think of it right now. Yeah. All I can think of is that dude from Philadelphia that now like runs that Italian Premier Serie A league. Like Venezia. Do you hear that story?
No.
Yeah, he's like the GM of the Italian Serie A team. Just from like sending a cold email to the owner, and he's like revitalized the entire franchise.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's a good story. You'll like it.
Cool. I'll look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So
Giants? Is this a Giants podcast?
I know. It's the off season. I never really watched much soccer, so I couldn't tell you much. And it's not the thing I'm really looking at in Europe right now. Anyway, I think we should. Sorry, I think we should jump into, I guess, the biggest news this week was that, and this is, speaking to the lull that we're in, is that the Giants are probably not going to pick up Daniel Jones's option. Of course, once that news comes out, it's just firestorm on Twitter of speculation and anger and people sticking by Jones and people decrying him. I kind of have a lot to say here. I want you guys to let me know what your feelings are on this. I think we're probably all in line. Colin, do you want to start?
Sure. That's 100% the right call. He has clearly come to the point of his career where, whether it's self-inflicted, if it was self-inflicted as well as otherwise, he's at a crossroads, and he has certainly not proved enough to warrant either getting his option picked up or an extension. So the right call is to not do that and kind of have it as a prove it year this year. And I think given that he's got a bunch of competent brains behind him to hopefully put him in a spot to, adhere to his strengths, play up to what he is good at, and get away from what he is not good at. And it's just the smart thing. And you know what? I'm sure he doesn't care. I'm sure he wants to prove it. He knows that he may not tell people, or his opinion is probably in a very small group of people that know about it. But I'm sure he's thrilled and wants to prove himself now. So it's the right call. And if that is actually the case, which I would have to imagine it is, why would they ever pick it up? I'm happy for it and I'm here for it. And who knows if Mitchell Trubisky is coming sooner than later to kind of light a fire. Because that's the latest rumor I saw floating around out there. I don't know how many more Bills quarterbacks can we have on the roster. Is Jim Kelly is he healthy enough to come back?
At least one, I think, is the right answer.
Yeah.
For me, if I just want to give this rundown, and I think that this makes a lot of sense, and not just because that Jones hasn't really earned what is going to essentially be a $21 million extension for his fifth-year option. The guy's super injury prone and he hasn't really produced in the field. And I realize, a lot of people want to make the argument that the Giants kind of failed him. And I do agree with that. But if you're going to miss 21% of your potential starts, and that's not including the first two games in his rookie year that Eli started, but it's 21% of your games that you're essentially supposed to be the starter for, you weren't playing. So you're missing a fifth of your games. People want to label him as not injury prone from some things I've been seeing on Twitter. What is injury prone if that isn't? It's a huge amount of games. You want to look back. Maybe we're spoiled as Giants fans because Eli, never missed a game that he wasn't forced to miss. Thanks, Ben McAdoo. So that's one thing for me why he doesn't deserve it. Another thing, obviously, is the production on the field. If you just want to look at his numbers real quick, so it's 3 years, right? Minus 2 games he wasn't supposed to be starting, minus the injuries. 8K yards, 45 touchdowns, 29 interceptions. The one for me is 36 fumbles. 12-16 as a starter. hardly inspiring numbers when you want to look at someone who's, garnering. I realize that $21 million is not maybe like a top echelon or a middle echelon quarterback contract at this point. But when I finish my point, I think it all makes sense. Like I said before, like, I don't want to sit here. Like I said, the Giants failed him, but I don't want to sit here and like kind of detract from Jones a lot, because I do think we've seen some things from him with his legs in the deep ball. He's definitely put his body on the line. He's a tough dude. I think that's something you got to give a lot of credit to, essentially. What I really hope at the end of the day is that like the coaching staff comes in here and kind of proves me wrong, proves us all wrong from what we've seen before, and he has a great year. And that would be awesome. And then after that, if that great year happens, then you can franchise tag him. It's only probably $28 million a year. So it's sort of like a $7 million kind of penalty or to like mitigate your risk moving forward to next year. And to me, that just makes so much sense for a guy who, yes, has had bad offensive systems, who has had bad offensive lines. Whether or not that matters, I mean, we see guys like Joe Burrow or, Russell Wilson in previous years with the Seahawks never really had offensive lines. They show you what an elite quarterback can do without talent around them on the offensive line. Jones hasn't shown that to me. But in the event, like, he gets schemed in to this and I'm wrong, and, because I won't sit here and give Freddie Kitchen, Jason Garrett, or Pat Schumer any credit. Absolutely not. But if we're wrong, he comes back. He has a great year. The Giants are taking zero risk here, except for, a Saquon Barkley contract this year. So to me, there's zero reason to give this guy the fifth-year option when you have that franchise tag and the ability to work on a full-time deal, after you tag him, if in the event that, he does have a great year.
Yeah, I don't have a ton new to say. I don't think the Giants are really being pushed in any way to sign him to that extension. I don't think they're barring an exceptional season from Daniel Jones, I don't think the market is going to demand a contract in the $22 million range for him if things go sideways. It's just not there. Daniel Jones doesn't have much leverage to push this. I think if we hadn't changed our entire front office, they would definitely have already signed him to that contract, whether or not to reinforce their commitment to him in whatever foolhardy way that is. But I think this is the smart move with this new coaching staff coming in, new front office, evaluate him. He's done nothing to distinguish himself amongst the other sort of bottom third quarterbacks in the NFL now that are relatively interchangeable. TJ ran through some stats, but he's 29th in yards this year, 30th in touchdowns. He improved the number of interceptions, but he also had way less attempts. And just really sort of bottom the barrel in all statistical analysis that really shows growth and dynamicism at the position. So totally happy with where they are. Bring in some competition, see what we got, and then reevaluate at the end of the season. Like you just said, it's $7 million worst case scenario.
I have a fantasy, and you're gonna laugh at me. I was thinking about it as both of you were talking about him. What if he is the kind of player, and this would be so ideal and so hilarious if it ended up working out like this. It never would, but it's just a fantasy. What if he was so mediocre, but the team got so much better that we just started winning games, but he did not play well enough to warrant big contracts, and we managed to not pay him a lot of money, and he stayed with us his whole career, and we ended up winning a bunch of games, and we didn't have to pay him a lot. That's a fantasy right there.
I mean, I think you're thinking about like what the 49ers want with Jimmy Garoppolo, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
I don't want that.
That's yeah. I mean, I
want
would
a
love
fun quarterback.
Well, what I mean by that is
Same.
like it would have to be like the 80s style Giants. It would be running the ball down your throat and the defense.
I wish.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though? Like I think another thing too you have to think about, and I know I mentioned Garrett before, but I feel like when Jones had all those issues, fumbling and throwing picks and stuff, like they had to scale back that offense so he wouldn't get rogue and go crazy and turn the ball over. So I think that conservatism the play calling conservatism has something to do with him as well. So I'm interested to see when new guys come in and maybe want to open up this offense a little bit, if Jones regresses into the turnovers a little bit more than he was the previous 2 seasons. If he doesn't, I think that's a really good sign in terms of being, someone who could come back on a favorable deal, or, maybe walks to another team and takes that kind of like lesser Kirk Cousins sort of role somewhere. I don't know. They're trying to get rid of him too, which is weird.
You're absolutely right, TJ. The offense was designed to mitigate and lessen turnovers and play it safe and ball control and put it on the defense and most importantly, the special teams and getting that punting position.
Punt position, very important.
With our awful punter that we had. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think put him in a position where he has the opportunity to fail first, and then see what happens.
I mean, like I said before, I think a lot of people do have a good point, is that the Giants have not done what they needed to do to help him be successful, and I hope they're going to do it now. And I hope that we're all wrong about him, because I know we haven't been super high on Jones in this podcast or on Twitter or anywhere else. So, I mean, I want to put my faith in the front office, the new front office. I think that's important. And I think it's the only mindset you can be in as a fan of this team right now. So if they want to bring Jones back and they don't want to pick up that option, I think that there's a lot of good reasons to not pick up that option. And I think they're giving him every opportunity to show us and show the believers and the non-believers exactly what's going on. Because, he's been a hard guy to evaluate throughout the years due to those offensive line problems, due to the bad scheming. But, a lot of those can be excuses. So I'm just looking forward, this is the year. We said it was last year, but this is the year, because he's not under contract the next year for no other reason other than that, basically.
Well, and also, now, like I said before, now that there's some competency behind him, if he fails with these smart people directing him, then it's all out there. Okay. There's no excuse. He's just bad. And then you move on, and then it's great. And then you just go somewhere else. Which is great, because then there's no wondering anymore,
It's tough to sit there at the top of the draft with two, top 10 picks and a question mark at quarterback and really not wanting to do anything about it. It's just a weird place to be. But, I don't expect the Giants to, make the playoffs next year. If they do that, I'll be awesome. I'll be really pleased. But I'd expect improvement to some degree. And I'd expect improvement from Jones, but even an improved Jones doesn't necessarily mean someone who sticks on the roster for, another contract or on a franchise tag or whatever it is that the Giants are looking to do after the season's over, depending on where they're at. To me, I still think, you bring in Mariota, Trubisky, Jacoby Brissett. I saw Blake Bortles, who I love. I'm sure he'd rather be working construction and ripping cigs at this point, but give him a shot. The Giants don't need a backup. They need a, the 31st best quarterback in the NFL as their backup, in my opinion, whoever that might be. And there are guys out there who can, fill that role. I think we've kind of beat that to death a little bit, but I'm just trying to counter that, Russell Wilson talk.
Well, I guess that kind of dictates a little bit of what happens in the draft. I don't know if you necessarily take a flyer on a rookie in the draft if you sign a 31st in the league quarterback as a backup. I don't think you can. That's like a waste of a draft pick, wouldn't you think?
No, it depends on the value and where you can get them.
I guess, but I mean in terms of I don't know. It's tough. I feel like it would push that veteran a little bit out of the 30.
Who cares?
32. Well, it all comes down to money too. Also, I think there's just a lot of number crunching that would have to be done. But
that's obvious. We spoke a lot about the cap last episode. I don't know, Colin. Do you want to give us any of your opinion on that now that you're back? Just in terms of any guys, I know you wanted to bring it up, so I'll throw it over to you.
Of cutting people or just
getting.
I don't want to say the same stuff we said on the last pod, but obviously the Giants are going to have to get rid of.
TJ's asking for a hot take. Do you have any hot takes?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Hot take. Bradbury, I guess, would just go cut him or try to trade him, and then that'll be the only guy I'll say. I think that's the number one.
I think the hilarious thing is you can pretty much say trade anyone on this team, and it wouldn't be that hot of a take.
I know that, and that
pretty lukewarm take.
And my second would be Blake Martinez, but that's not that's lukewarm too. It's like, all right, he was a great middle linebacker, but he got pretty hurt, so it's kind of like, what is he going to be coming back? So
I sort of feel like I could count on one hand like the guys I would be upset about if they got traded right now.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
McKinney, Andrew Thomas, Azeez Ojulari, Quincy Roche, Dexter Lawrence. I hope they re-sign Austin Johnson. I don't know beyond that if there's anyone I really am like deeply in love with. I hope Kadarius Toney, comes out this year and kind of stays on the field and they scheme him in well, and he becomes a bigger part of this offense. But to me, last year was a little bit of a wash for that guy. Yeah, for everybody, I guess.
I think the one person I would not want to see go anywhere is McKinney, and then pretty much anyone else for the most part, I wouldn't care. I really wouldn't. I mean, he kind of showed the most for me, so that's the exciting part on the defense at least.
It's painful to sit here, and so my mind is just wandering right now, just thinking about like where this team could have been at this position with all that draft capital and the cap space, and then where it is right now, it's not a good team.
And you hate to see all those other players that went elsewhere and have kind of excelled recently, like the BJ Hills of the world and stuff like that. Like, it drives me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate circumstance for this team, and Dan just popped out, but now that Dan's back, we were just talking quick about the state of where this roster is after I mentioned my few players I wanted back, and how we sort of got here and how it just speaks to the DG era. He who shall not be named, as I loved how Ian said last week.
Yeah. I think my computer is just shutting down anytime I bring up that name or think about it. It's just cutting me off. I hit my lifetime quota there. It's not healthy for me anymore. No, but I heard you list off most of those names, and I think we've been over it. Those are essentially players with upside and good contracts. Kind of people you want to keep. Anyone else, any sort of draft equity, clearing cap space, no one's that talented on this team that we can't find other people to replace them in one way, shape, or form. And so much is up in the air as far as coaching staff and finding players to fit these new systems. It's really hard for us to speculate with just a total sea change in every aspect of the team. So it's just fun to speculate at like drafts and exciting players with just like from a pure like skill, power, strength, speed analysis. Who knows what this offense and defense is going to look like?
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy at this point that there's not been pretty much anything done by this staff now, and we're putting so much faith into them. Not like the players are great on the team currently, but in years past we would never be like, oh yeah, a player that was a pretty big part of the offense or defense. Yeah, get rid of him if you think it's the right. We would never really think that.
Because the team has never been this bad before, I know. And we're not replacing people so historically inept. Like you can't have a worse front office, a worse GM than we had for the past 3.5, 4 years or whatever. You can't have a worse roster than we had across the board. Like last week we said sort of last year, but really by adding competent people that are recognized across the league as knowing what they're doing, to expect an improvement, I think is not a crazy idea. I think we finally feel like you have adults making decisions and using like modern ideas to steer this team moving forward. So I think it's a relief, and I think people can get excited and project a little bit.
Yeah. I just, kind of like that millennial energy on the top, or I guess maybe he's more Gen X, but that old school baby boomer line of thinking where I'm right and everyone else is my peon.
Yeah,
that doesn't work anymore. That's not how to motivate people. That's not how to create something positive for people of our generation who are, the main workforce at this point, I guess you could say. It's God.
That's just bravado. He was scared. He didn't know anything. He didn't know what he was doing. So he's just talking smack off the top and trying to get people to just, filibustering. Classic DG.
Yeah, you know what? You're probably right. But still, I just don't think he ever listened to anyone. I think he just had his ideas and just went for it, which is not good. It's not a good way to run a football team, especially when how much do you think they're paying for the scouting department? And then you're just going to ignore half the people in it.
He had a feeling deep in his plums,
Oh, I could feel it. If we do want to shift over gears a little bit to the future of the offseason here, the combine starts this week. What Colin likes to call it the underwear Olympics. There's always some guy that hops out and moves up the draft board because of sort of this kind of antiquated it's kind of like the Senior Bowl to me, where you take all this tape that you've had on this guy for a really long time, and then all of a sudden you have 2 events that you're like, well, my whole opinion has changed now.
Except they're not actually playing football; they're just doing stuff in spandex.
Well, I mean,
guess, yeah.
Who's going to be the DK Metcalf this year? That's the question.
I was just going to say his name. Yeah.
I mean, because like that guy was good in college, and he's a physical freak, and everybody knew it. But they also didn't think he was going to be an automatic plug and play in the NFL.
Colin, are you putting together your annual draft combine calendar with 8x10 glossy images and stuff?
Of myself?
No, of draft combine.
I figured I would just take various pictures in combine.
Oh, of you doing like different events?
Yeah, and just
that would be way better, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if I could try to hit my high school 40 time of 4.7, that's my proudest achievement. I think I would never come close ever again.
Yeah, who timed that? Was that like Coach Krell or Coach Pops? They
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Krell actually.
yeah. Okay.
Screaming at me down the line. Yeah.
But 4.7. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty decent.
If you put on like 300 pounds, you could play whole line in the NFL right now.
Yeah, exactly.
6 inches. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't strong. I wasn't big, but I can run mediocre fast as a
plod around. Yeah.
As a non-receiving wide receiver in the high school wing T offense.
You were
blocking on the edges, blocking the cornerbacks.
Blindside blocks and linebackers who didn't see it coming. That was my favorite.
Makes it a lot easier. Yeah, but Dan, any thoughts on the Dog and Pony Show this week?
Yeah, I think like you have to take everything with a grain of salt, like we were saying, as far as the combine. But maybe it'll serve a purpose to sort of distinguish certain players that are in what seems to be like a lot of groups and a lot of tiers of those highly touted, highly sought after positions. For instance, like those 3 top offensive tackles between Neal and Icky,
Icky baby,
Icky and Cross. Like they all have like different strengths and weaknesses. Maybe someone will distinguish between each other there. Same with and there's also like a little subgroup right beneath them of like that German guy. What's it, Ryman?
Raymond,
Central Michigan, who people say is like super raw but could be great. And then the other guy that Penning from Northern Illinois. Another like 2 guys lesser known but have a lot of measurables. Obviously a position that we're looking to fill for the Giants roster. See how that shakes out. Tons of like interesting wide receivers that have like a wide variety of skills and all do sort of different things. I think there's like, by my account, like 6 wide receivers, like Drake London from USC, who's like 6'4" and super fast. Garrett Wilson from Ohio State, Jamison Williams from Alabama, Chris Olaf from Ohio State, and Treylon Burks. I think he's from like Oklahoma State. Oh no, Texas A&M. All sort of like different guys. What?
I'm interested you didn't mention Sky Moore there, because I think he's like he's glitch. It's like a glitch. It's a glitch on PFF where he doesn't get drafted unless you draft him from whoever team plays. So every single mock draft I've ever seen for the Giants has Sky Moore on it.
Yeah,
people don't rely totally on the PFF score.
Yeah, it was like some linebacker last year. Same thing. It was like I forget his name, but it was glitched out last year, and like everyone's like, I picked him up in the 7th round, and then he ended up going in like the 2nd.
Sky Moore, he shows up in the 3rd. You see him there. I would do those PFF mock drafts, and I look at it and I'm like, oh, so do you just want me to draft him? Should I just draft him? And then he's there in the next round. He's right there. And do I have to draft? Oh, he's still there. Do I have to draft him now? I don't know. His name's kind of cool. I guess that's enough. And we need a wide receiver. No, I don't want you anymore because I see you too much. And
he drove me. That thing was, he was the first one. There's like a handful of them, like Leo Chanel, the linebacker from. I think he's actually good, but Sky Moore, I was drew me so crazy. I actually watched like his YouTube highlights, and it was very,
What type of player is he? I haven't done any watching of the film.
I think he's like 5'10".
He's like
wide receiver,
shepherd-ish,
the slot guy.
Yeah, he's not like blazing fast, and he's just like reliable. It seems from the 15 minutes of film I watched on him, and he wasn't playing against like top top tier comedy there. So he was like, I'm sure. A cornerstone of your. It probably dropped.
No, you're there. You're there.
What's happening? Are we back?
Can you hear me,
Are we back?
Right.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks.
It's that Sky More glitch.
This is new technology we're dealing with here. Yeah, it's the Skynet, Sky More Net.
Last thing, I want to see Malik Willis again.
Yes.
And I think Matt Corral from Ole Miss is going to be partaking in this. He didn't do the Senior Bowl, and he was highly touted coming in, and he's also one of those more athletic quarterbacks. See how that shakes out, but some DNs, like not the top tier guys. Was Ojabo from Michigan, Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, and who was the other guy? Cameron Thomas from San Diego. I haven't watched any of these guys play, but in all the drafts, they're sort of that second tier underneath those guys from Georgia, and obviously Thibodeau and Hutchinson. But those are like sweet spots for Giants picks, I think, whether it's in the first or second round for defensive ends.
Not player specific related, but I just have this, and you probably share the same feeling. If a trade's going to happen, it's going to be at that 7th pick. It's going to happen there. Has to.
Right. Well, we should talk about, your guys' ideal sort of top of the draft strategy for the Giants. Like, how would you want them to approach it?
Okay.
I think it could happen at 5 too, honestly, but go ahead first, Colin.
It could. And I've tried with the mock drafts, and I know it's not, not real life, but it's as close as we're going to get to it. And I've tried many combinations of trying to trade out of the 5th spot, and I don't get enough from it. Well, how do I put this? I want the automatic, whoever the best tackle is right there at 5. I just feel like that isn't, get that out of the way right quick. And then the second one, especially lately, I mean, I want Linnebaum, but not at 7. He's starting to drop in terms of the whole perception of. I think it's people they're scared of drafting a center in the top 10. Yeah. They don't want to do it. So if we could get back to 14 to 18 and he's still sitting there, hit it out of the park. That's my favorite thing. Tackle, center, get into the 2nd round, and then start opening it up from there. That's what I want to start off.
I get worried that picking at 5, you have basically, in my opinion, you have the 2 edge rushers and the 2 tackles, and Neal and Ickey and Thibodeau and Hutchinson. Feasibly, those guys could all be off the board if you look at the needs. You hope that one of those teams picks Kyle Hamilton and that the Giants get to pick one of those guys. But I think worst case scenario for this team is none of those guys are there at 5. And then what do you do? And I don't, the only guy I've really watched film on is Cross, because I was just curious to see, because I've seen him all over the place on draft boards. And I think that he might be a guy, and this is not a nice thing to say, he might be a guy who can increase his draft stock during the combine, because there were moments playing against top competition, at least just from the highlights I saw. And don't get me wrong, I'm not breaking the film down. I'm listening to someone break the film down.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of repeating what someone else is saying. But, that he has to work on kind of the point of attack. So he does have issues. Whether or not that's a huge deal or not, I'm not going to be the one to kind of tell you. But the guy who I was listening to said it was. So do you go and make that reach there? Because then you're kind of in a position where, you could go Carol Laftis too on the edge, or go linebacker, or whatever you want to do. But in my opinion, if you're at 5 and one of those 4 guys aren't there, then you trade back, and you could trade back at 7 too. I just think the roster is just, what do you feasibly need on this team? Like offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, cornerback, tight end,
everything.
Probably wide receiver after the cuts are done, quarterback potentially. If you trade back and Malik Willis is there at 15 or something, do you do that? That's a good question. Dan, I want to know the answer to that.
Would I take Malik Willis in the 15th, 16th, 17th pick?
Yeah, sure. Or would you go quarterback at all if it made sense?
I sort of got off of it for a while. In a bunch of drafts, I was really trying to make Malik Willis happen with sort of that draft back. I can't say I wouldn't be super excited if we did do it. I think there's a lot of ways to approach this. I'm staring at a picture of Aiden Hutchinson right now, and I am guarantee you I'm going to hate this guy.
Why?
I hate his face. line coming vertical, and his name is A. Dislike. But I think they sold me on Kyle Hamilton. I think the Giants have to take someone with their 5th or 7th pick. If they can trade down with another one, that'd be fine. But if you can come out of the first round with, I think anyone from Aiden Hutchinson, Kyle Hamilton, or Kevin Thibodeau, plus an offensive lineman, you're going to be pretty happy whether you trade down or not. What Colin's saying is what I always try to do is angle to trade out of 5 or 7 and get into the teens with an additional 2nd round pick and a future pick. That'd be ideal. A lot of these mock draft simulators, you can get a 1st, a 2nd, and a 3rd for your 5th or 7th. But it comes down to, how we evaluate them. If one of these 3 tackles is there and one of these other blue chip defensive players, I think also Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati is getting insane praise when people are actually watching his film, and he's just shutting down everyone, not allowing a touchdown all season. Those kind of players can change your defense entirely. And we still need help on defense. And then you can find a lot of value. I think it's, at the top for offensive line talent. It might not be as strong as people think. And there's certainly a lot of depth. So we can acquire more draft equity and pick up 2nd and 3rd and 4th round offensive linemen that might be able to contribute right away. So a lot of different things we can do. And I'm sure we're going to do a mock draft episode and all that other stuff, but just getting to know a lot of these players. And I think there's some I think the defensive talent of this draft is more dynamic in the 1st round.
Well, it's funny you say that, and bringing up Sauce in particular. I wanted to ask you guys, doing all of these mocks, I've found myself, how do I put this? There's positions in the 1st round, especially because we have 2 picks in it, where I think the majority of Giants land would be upset if we drafted a certain position at, say, the 2nd. I'm thinking more trading out of the 7th, or maybe even staying at 7, who knows? But the 2nd first round pick being a position that you wouldn't typically think would be a pick there.
If Kyle Hamilton's there at 7, you wouldn't want him?
No, I would. I would think either something like that or a good cornerback. Corner, not quarter. Well, although I guess that depends.
I mean, I think as far as positional value goes, cornerbacks, it's like quarterbacks, offensive tackles, defensive ends, and then cornerbacks are like the top tier. So taking a cornerback in the 1st round,
it's not crazy.
Is not crazy at all, especially if they're as good as some people are saying this cornerback group is.
Yeah.
And it's not like, especially if we're getting rid of James Bradbury to get under the cap. It's
Petrie, the Baylor cornerback that I keep seeing. He keeps showing up every single. It is Petrie.
Yeah,
right?
He's more of a slot corner.
Yeah. So you wouldn't think, although he's there. He's there in the 1st constantly, and he's rated.
He's there in the 3rd.
Well, I start seeing him. Well, at least the ones I've seen, he starts cropping up sometimes early, especially
not at
7. Not at 7. I mean, if we trade out of 7 and we end up in the 20s or something like that.
Yeah.
I sort of think the Giants had to have some young guys on the roster that could potentially step up. So, I wouldn't be against picking anyone in the secondary at 5 or 7, honestly. I mean, Hamilton's an interesting case, and it's hard to kind of say he's a safety because he does a lot more than that. Yeah. But I don't know if they pick him at 5, and I would be thrilled about it. If they picked him at 7, he lasted that long, I would be fine with it. But in terms of picking someone up in the secondary at 7, I think it's a great idea. I think you always need help in the secondary.
I'm glad
the Giants need
so.
a pass rush,
Yeah, because I think that we would be the outliers in terms of the fan base now. I think people would freak out if we got someone like that because it's not in their head of what you get there, but they also don't think of value. And
I've seen so many mocks where it's just 2 offensive linemen kind of jammed in there. And again, if Neal or Icky are there at 5, you take them. But I've seen people pass on Thibodeau and Hutchinson to force 2 tackles in. No. You have to, at the same time that you look at the needs of this team, you have to pick best player available in your mind too. Luckily, at the top of this draft, those two things coincide a lot. But if it's not the case and, you end up with Kyle Hamilton at 7, I don't think people should be upset about that.
No.
At all. He's a dynamic player, especially if they find a way to ship out Logan Ryan in the offseason.
And imagine
I believe that's going to happen.
Him and McKinney together would be insanity.
I think it opens up so much for Wink Martindale to, he's a good guy to scheme players into blitzes, not necessarily just like let, great players rush the passer. So if you can have one deep safety and bring another guy into the box, it just creates so much versatility for your defensive scheme. Yeah. And I think that's a possibility with Hamilton. I think people need to remember that just because the Giants defense has been, good or fairly good the last 2 years, it doesn't mean that it's guaranteed this year if you spend all your draft capital picking offensive tackles or guards, especially reaching. Yeah.
Which is funny because we're talking about this now, and draft day is going to come around, and if we don't get to a tackle and a center, we're going to be pissed off.
Of course,
so,
100%.
That's just how that's going to go. So
this is probably any number of conversations we're going to have about this. I'm sure dudes are going to bounce around the boards, and we're going to change our mind, probably based a lot on the opinions of other people. So, but for now, this is where I'm at in my head.
Yeah, I have so much faith. Unwisely or not in this front office, as long as we don't draft a tight end and a running back in the first round, I'm going to be pretty happy. Like I can't really conceive of a first round pick at any other position group. Maybe if we get if someone picks a linebacker with the 5th pick, I'll be upset, but almost any other position makes sense. Even a wide receiver in the first round, again, I wouldn't be upset. Though I don't really like
I would be upset. I would be upset.
Yeah,
but again, like you said, and I've said before, if they think that's the best pick for this team, I'm going to go with it. And then a year from the day of the draft, I'm going to say whatever I want about it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Sure.
Anything else tonight, guys? I mean, I think we're still kind of getting into the groove of doing these off-season podcasts. So
yeah, it's a famously sort of dry or barren football news period right now. This is when all the writers go on vacation and
doldrums
out of town. So I think we might have some interesting ideas for next couple of weeks, just weird things to do, talk about sort of Giants auxiliary stuff. Maybe Colin has some memories he wants to share.
I got some good news just for right now.
Sure.
I may have told you, but it's kind of more official now.
You're growing your mustache back?
No.
Thank you.
No, and I don't think I mentioned it because I wasn't on last week, obviously, that it looks like this Hart side of the family is going to be in full control over our season tickets. So
I thought you were about to say you're going to have a kid.
No. No, well, it's close. It's the same. So long story short, we for years would split the 8 home games with the other side of the family, the cousins. And recently it got pushed over to my dad. So not only are we controlling all of the tickets, but there's an extra home game this year. So we are going to continue to split for probably a couple of years. But I mean, it's already, the groundwork is being laid where all the games are going to be mine.
All the games are yours, eh?
Well, yeah, and
I know for loyal listeners, you guys know we're from Westchester County, so clearly this is a very good problem for you to have, Colin. Here, I don't know how much do these things cost a year, though. That's gonna be cheap.
Well, I mean, Steph and my dad and I have been talking about it, and I think starting next year we're gonna go into the business together. So I'm gonna take some of the burden off of my dad for being awesome and spending all the money that he's been spending. However, I thought it was more than it actually ended up being. I don't know what the exact number, but it's something along the lines of like $1,800 a year or something like that for the 2 tickets for half of the games. So, do the math. I thought it was a lot more. So,
what about
it's
the PSL?
Great. Well, the PSL has already been paid for the year that they opened this trash stadium that we play in.
Oh man,
what? It sucks. Yeah, everyone knows it sucks. It's like the worst
great
stadium in the league. Whatever. That's another conversation. But But yeah, the PSLs. I'm glad I wasn't a part of that whole thing. That was a $10,000 check write off from my pops right to the other side of the family. It was $20,000 for the 2 tickets.
So do you actually like get like a thing on the seat that says it belongs to you?
No.
So then I don't understand. What does this mean? You just it's just a cash grab.
Yeah,
you have the right to buy the tickets.
Yeah, it's a ticket for the ticket. It's the Mara Johnson cheapo.
Who came up with this?
I'm sure it was whatever minions Mara's got running around saying, you know how you gotta get more money.
Was it like who invented the personal seat license? Was it? It's Jerry Jones, wasn't it?
Oh, must have been. That sounds like a Jerry Jones thing.
I couldn't imagine it would be anybody else.
Right.
All right. Hey, sports fans! The latest offer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is too good to pass up. I'm talking between the legs 360 windmill good. New customers can bet just $1 on any team and get $150 in free bets if they win. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still take a shot at a big payday. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings daily fantasy basketball contests. DraftKings giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN. Bet just $1 on any NBA team and get $150 in free bets if they win. That's promo code TPPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus. Minimum age and location requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for a full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Void where prohibited. Minimum $5 deposit. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Tennessee, call or text the TN Red Line 1-800-889-9789. In Connecticut, call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Booyah! I'm getting good at that. I don't know.
Well, they keep adding all this stuff in here. It's like gymnastics of the mouth.
I feel like all the states need to get their proverbial S together. Oh wait, I can curse now. Because Ian cursed in the last pod, so I feel emboldened. Should get the proverbial stuff together. Never mind. And create, and everyone should just go on 1-800-GAMBLER. You know, wait. It's catchy. You know.
Oh, you mean like everyone has a problem with gambling, so go check yourself out.
Yeah. Do they have one of those for alcohol? You think? And should I call it? Don't answer that. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. Anything else tonight, guys? Before we go.
No.
Do you guys watch the Kanye documentary on Netflix yet?
No.
I'd rather pass away.
Yeah,
you should do it. It's pretty amazing.
I bet it would make me really like him more.
So what is it? Just like, some like therapist sitting there and explaining all his mental health issues, or
he's had a guy following him around since like 1999, filming him.
Of course,
It's incredible, dude. It's him playing like Through the Wire for the first time to Pharrell. It's the first time Pharrell like even knows Kanye can rap. It's like these like seminal moments in like hip hop history with like the most famous people ever. It's pretty
Who's
incredible.
The guy?
This guy Kuti. He's like a stand-up comedian from Chicago who's friends with Kanye, and they just started filming, and they have so much footage of him like making like some of the most famous songs ever. It's pretty incredible.
All right, that does sound pretty
That's
cool.
Yeah.
Can I turn it off like
the first two
or
the first 3 hours only get you to the release of College Dropout.
3 hours?
How long is it?
It's like I think it's going to be 3 or 4 installments.
Wow.
But I mean, it's mostly the old Kanye because after he becomes super famous, he gets estranged from the documentarian. And anyway.
I loved Kanye, and then I think My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is one of the best hip hop albums of all time, honestly.
Of course.
But after that, I just, can't get involved with I think the music went downhill, and I think he went downhill. And I should stop wearing a black hood over his face and hanging out with Antonio Brown. What a combo those two are.
Yeah, really. Insane.
Match made in heaven, right?
No.
The only excuse, at least Antonio Brown's been hit in the head one too many times. What excuse does Kanye have?
The car crash.
Yeah.
Hey, all right.
CTE.
I'll take it.
They're both CTE. It's throwback, but whatever.
All right. Sure. Thanks again for listening tonight, guys. Follow Big Blue United on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow us directly at BBU Podboys with the Z on Twitter. I've been out there just fighting with everyone I don't agree with and acting like a big jerk. So please fight me. It brings me so much joy. I used to go on Reddit and fight about politics, but now I go on Twitter and fight about the Giants. I just need that as a part of my life. That negativity, I thrive on it.
Whatever you do, though, just don't physically try to fight him.
You know, just if you want to come down to Teddy's Bar and Grill, 96 Berry Street, Brooklyn, New York, and have a delicious brunch one day, you know, we don't have to fight. I'll buy you a beer. Yeah. It's just football. You know, It's not the end of the world. Download that DraftKings app and don't forget to check out that OVHCloud. Again, I'll show the link one more time. We'll have that in our bio and our Twitter and on this description of this YouTube video as well. So thanks again, guys, for listening. Have a good night.
Goodbye.
Yeah.